Hello, the world. Welcome back to this episode of Live Transitioning Humanitarians. And today I'm continuing without Vicky. She couldn't make it. So today that I want to continue the topic of connection and in particular connection to other people. And especially the holiday season's coming up, right? We're about to celebrate different holidays and how we connect to people around us, people that we haven't seen for a while, or people that we have been intimate or we have been in close contact for like regularly. How can we restore or basically connect more so we can enjoy the holidays more? This is the topic that I want to talk about, and I will also include some of the ways that we can do with work colleagues as well, in case we're doing that as well. So, first, I thought that I would discuss a bit of how we recognize that we're not really connecting with other people, right? And I think many of us are like naturally attuned to know that. But in case you're wondering, how do I really know that I'm not connecting to other people? Is when you feel like there is a barrier between you and someone else. Now, some of the barriers may be very natural and normal in the sense of you don't have close contact with them, right? So therefore, it might be just what is the word, like a distance that's healthy, but maybe with other people, you would like to have more closer connection to them without having those barriers. And then what do we do with those? And that's what we're going to talk about. So when you recognize that you have this barrier with the people that you love or the people that you really want to connect to, whether it's at work or at home or around holiday tables, then notice within yourself what are the feelings that you have towards that person, right? So whenever we have the barrier, usually that comes from some type of our thinking around that person or about that person. So I will give you an example so that I make it more specific that you can maybe relate to. For many years in the past, I used to have a lot of barriers with my mother because I thought that she could have left my father a long time ago and she didn't, even though he was violent. And I had a lot of thoughts about how my mom was weak and she couldn't really get her things together and she didn't leave, and therefore I felt like I suffered the childhood that I didn't want to suffer, right? So that was my way of creating barrier between myself and my mom. Therefore, connecting to her was very difficult, even though I loved her and I knew that I loved her, and I still do, obviously. But I always felt like around holidays or around family gatherings, all of these issues keep coming up, and then I just felt like I need to keep my distance, otherwise I will want to say things to her or I will want to say things that may hurt her. And therefore, I just try to watch what I say and how I say it. And I sometimes had the feeling that I just need to get away, right? So that I can feel like being myself. And this is like one of the biggest, I think, that I remember where I had the feeling of I have difficulty connecting to my mother, right? And even if she wanted to tell me stuff or she wanted to maybe even complain about things or maybe complain about my father, right? And I just felt like I can't really tolerate that. I can't really listen to that. I'm tired of, I'm fed up with that, or I had enough, whatever it is, right? So these were the reasons. So the barriers that I had with her was the all of this past stories that I have had with her and with my dad, and I kept like telling to myself about my mom that she should have left him a long time ago and she didn't, and I blamed her for that. And also I blamed basically my childhood for with her a bit, in the sense that she could have been my only savior back in the day to take me out of that violent situation, and she didn't. Right? So these were some of the ways that every time I would spend holidays or whatever the family gathering, or even like outside of it, connecting to her or talking to her about all of the things were always not easy. And then the way that I have learned through coaching, I have learned how many of us have these manuals, like my coach calls it, or instructions, or the way that we believe that other people should behave or should have behaved and they didn't, and therefore we just keep holding on to those, right? So we keep holding on to those, like the past. We keep holding on to our way of seeing things of how it should be, and they're not, and therefore we just keep creating a lot of these barriers, which are in the form of our thoughts, right, in the form of our feelings, and then therefore these feelings just keep like creating more walls between the two, and therefore we feel like we can't really connect to the other person, we can't really uh, be truly ourselves around that person. We feel maybe we're not accepted by the other person, and therefore connection is not there. And therefore what ends up often happening is that we don't tend to enjoy the holidays, or maybe we don't tend to enjoy spending time with them. We just do it because we have to, kind of thing, right? Or we don't really have heartfelt conversations with that person. We don't maybe spend a lot of time understanding or getting to know. All of these things we don't do because we don't really have that connection. And oftentimes we also, what we do is we tend to blame the other person for, if the other person was this and this, then I could have had more connection, right? Just the way that I used to say about my mom, that if she was a more stronger person, if she really took care of her problems and then protected us better, if she this and if she that, right? But I know that that's the past, and that there's nothing can be done about it. And therefore, at some point, through learning this, how we have these manuals or instructions of how other people should behave and how they're not behaving. And once I started realizing that I actually have the possibility to not create those barriers anymore if I don't want to, and once I realized that, then I started thinking about, how do I want to connect to my mom, knowing of all the things that had happened in the past, right? So one way is obviously forgiving a lot of the things that have happened in the past. That's an option that I have, and I actually worked on it to forgiving her in so many ways, right? So that was one way. The other way is I started seeing that, yes, that's my way of how I would have handled if I were her. But I also know that she's different and she handled this way. Now, I can judge her all day long, but I do not want my uh, relationship with my mom to be so much fixated on what had happened in the past. I don't want my relationship to be filled with resentment or hatred or blame because of what had happened in the past, but rather I want my relationship now to be about how we move on to building our relationship as of now, because whatever happened in the past, unfortunately that's how it had been, right? So that's why, like, forgiving and dropping that manual of how I thought she should have behaved and how she didn't, and now what am I going to do about it, and how do I build my relationship, and how do I connect to my mom as of now, or whatever, whenever you want to start connecting to her or to whoever you want to, right? How can you do that while knowing what had happened, or while knowing how the other person is different? You are different, your way of solving things is different, their way of solving things is different. How do you want to connect to them? The other thing that really helps to think about is, I think, um, do we the way that I was thinking is that when we build relationship with other people, we want to be connected. We I should say this way: we want to be accepted. We want to be accepted for who we are, right? We want to be really understood for who we are. We want to be accepted, maybe even just like as humans who make mistakes, or humans who make things in the way that maybe we regret later. We really want to be accepted that way, right? And that gives us so much connection. And if we want others to do that, then obviously we can do that as well, right? So, in other words, if we go to connect with other people, let's say at work, right? So, at work, we often want to be accepted for how great we are, or how we do things in this way, in another way. We want to really be accepted for who we are, basically. And oftentimes we feel and we suffer a lot from how we feel maybe that our boss is not accepting us the way we are, or our colleague is not, and therefore we tend to isolate ourselves or think a lot about why they see us this way. How could we be seen another way, right? So we spend a lot of that time doing that, and therefore knowing that how we feel when others don't accept us, how we feel when we don't really connect to other people, and those feelings are not really pleasant, right? So when we are not really connected to people, maybe some of the people at work, then we feel like we are really alone. Maybe we feel not understood, we feel not appreciated, we feel not really recognized, and therefore connecting to people even at work becomes so important, right? So in order to do that, though, we may need to do the first step of how whatever the barriers we have between that person, how can we remove them? And one of the best ways that we can remove them is we can see that we have our opinion about the other person, which is very natural, right? We also have maybe judgments about the other person, like they are not competent, or they are loud, they are show off, or whatever the judgments that we may have. Those are the judgments that actually create these barriers between us and the person that we want to connect to, even at work, right? So, in order to remove those barriers, we need to again drop our manuals, or drop our instructions about how other people should be showing up, should be behaving, should be treating us, or should be whatever, because yeah, other people are different. We are different. And if we want to really stand by that inclusive, recognizing and celebrating uniqueness among ourselves, then the first step is removing those barriers to connection. I also wanted to talk to you about how connection could look like when we are doing this with work colleagues and with loved ones, right? So, when it comes to work colleagues, how connection could look like, maybe we may not be able to do that with everyone or with many of them, which is fine, but it would be like good for us, I think, to challenge ourselves to see, can we create connections with people we disagree with? That would be like the great challenge for us, in especially when we start then seeing how we could still connect to that person even if we disagree on certain things. Can we do that, right? And that type of connection may actually help us create healthy, in quotes, healthy debates with other people, because then we're no longer um, making it about us. We're no longer making it personal, but we're also respecting the other person's brilliance. We are respecting our own brilliance, right? But at the same time, having the conversation where we may disagree with each other. But at the same time, we know that we can connect to each other through that intelligence, or we can connect to each other through respecting each other's way of thinking, or each other's way of having these debates, even though we disagree, but we still understand where they're coming from. They understand where we're coming from, right? And that makes us connected to the person as well. Because oftentimes I think we believe that connecting to someone needs to be only if they really like us, or if they really feel like we are one of them or whatever, right? But connection can happen also on very different levels. And it doesn't need to be on the liking level, let's say, on liking each other, right? Connection can happen also on the level of just being humans. And I think we don't often use that in our lives, where especially when it comes to people that for me, for instance, difficult to accept or difficult to even comprehend, or maybe I get even annoyed, right? When those type of situations happen, I try to go to, okay, how can I connect to this person on the human level, meaning seeing the other person as human, having their own opinions, their own way of thinking, their own way of acting, their own way of communicating, and then seeing myself as well as, okay, I'm human and I'm having this annoying reaction, or I'm annoyed or disappointed, whatever it is. I'm human and I'm accepting that, and that's okay. I think this can also give us so much more like compassion to ourselves and compassion to the other person before we start then going to other levels of connection, right? So to come to the family level of connection, I think we can explore a lot of different ways we connect. And one of the biggest way that we connect, I would love to suggest, is using love, right? And love can take different forms, but it is always available to us. And especially when it comes to like the examples that I talked about my mother, I have always gone back to, no matter what, though, I love my mother, right? No matter what, I am grateful for all the things she has done, even though I wish there were so many things she had done for me to protect me and all of this and my other siblings. But there are also so many things she has done for us, and I'm very grateful for it. So I can connect with her on that level. I can also connect with her on the level of maybe being women, right? I can connect to her on the level of maybe being a spouse. So there are many ways that I can connect to her, and also about the past, or about what my manuals of how she should have behaved and how she didn't. I can also find ways and explore how I can forgive her, so that the past does not dictate my current relationship with my mom, right? So I will always think about, do I really want my judgment to be the reason why I spoil my holidays, or I spoil my relationship with her, or not? Because I don't want my judgments to be creating more barriers that in the end are not useful. Even if I told her, even if I had the conversations, and even if like we all cried over or fought over or had conflicts over, in the end, nothing would change anyway, because that's in the past. Right? So that's why you can see that with the family members, we have lots of different ways we can connect to them. One of the main that I always think of it is loving. Like, can I replace my resentment or my judgments and all of this with love, or whatever the other feeling that's accessible to you, right? And that way, I don't need to want to get away from talking to her. I don't need to want to like finish the holidays and then just uh, like being okay, everything is over and it's fine, right? But I just can in that moment be present with my mom, connect to her, be really like experiencing my love for her, feeling all of this love for her, right? Which is amazing feeling. Spending the holidays together, um, learning more about what's going on for her currently, and always seeing myself how I go back to accepting her the way she is, going back to respecting her, and understanding her. These are the ways that I can connect, and then I feel so much better afterwards. And I feel like a lot of my feelings have been filled by talking to her and connecting to her, right? And I really wish this for every one of you who are wanting to connect to other people. Therefore, if you want to make it as practical as possible, take at least one person from your family or your friend circle and one from work, one person in particular, right? And then the second one is look at all of your opinions, all of your maybe judgments, your feelings around that person. And those are usually, if the feelings are negative, they are usually indicators of how we have created those barriers knowingly, without really knowing, right? And then the third one is how do you want to maybe let go of some of those feelings or recognize that other people behave the way they behave and therefore not let those feelings be the reason why you can't connect and allow yourself different ways on different levels of how you can connect to that person on the human level, on the intellectual level, on the feeling level, on maybe experience level, right? On love level, whatever those levels are, explore how you can connect to them. And that way you will get to experience those amazing feelings within you. You get to know the other person. You are likely to spend great time together or have deep conversations. And then afterwards, going home feeling like, yes, this holiday was great, or this relationship is going well, whichever the way that you want to continue with that person, right? And then you will also feel proud of yourself for having done this work on yourself and with that person. And instead of just escaping or feeling like you just need to, yeah, be over this or whatever, right? So that's why I really wish this for everyone, having this very connecting holiday season with your loved ones, with work colleagues, with anyone who's around you, so you can feel this fulfillment, you can feel this love, you can feel this acceptance, you can feel this connection that makes the holiday even better than you can ever imagine. That's what I wish for you. So, thank you so much for listening, watching, and I will be speaking to you very soon. Happy holidays, and yeah, appreciate your support and watching.